A routine flight from Chicago to New York takes a terrifying turn when the plane experiences a sudden engine failure. Passengers are thrown into panic as the crew struggles to regain control. But what they don't know is that one of them is no ordinary traveler. Naomi Daniels, an experienced pilot, had booked a first-class seat, but due to a mix-up, she was assigned an economy seat. Dismissed by the gate staff and underestimated by the crew, Naomi quietly takes her seat. As the plane begins to lurch violently, Naomi stands up, calm and collected, and offers to help. With no time to waste, she steps into the cockpit, takes control of the situation, and expertly guides the plane back to Chicago. Thanks to Naomi's quick thinking and skill, the passengers safely land, and she proves that true courage and expertise can turn any crisis into a triumph. Flight 2457 was scheduled to take off from Chicago to New York, with passengers eager for a smooth and relaxing journey. Among them was Naomi Daniels, a young black female pilot with a history of success in the aviation industry. She had worked hard to become one of the few black women to reach such a high position. But today, Naomi wasn't in the cockpit. She was just a passenger, on her way to visit family. Excited for a peaceful trip, Naomi looked forward to a few quiet hours in first class. However, when she arrived at the gate, things quickly took a turn. Naomi handed over her ticket, expecting to board in luxury, but the gate agent noticed a mix-up and assigned her to an economy seat instead. Naomi glanced at her ticket, confused. She had booked first class. As she was escorted to the back of the plane, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a mistake. It was something deeper. Subtle discrimination hung in the air as she made her way to her seat. As Naomi handed her ticket to the gate agent, Becky Harris, she noticed something odd in the agent's demeanor. Becky's eyes flicked briefly from the ticket to Naomi, and then back at the ticket again, with an almost dismissive frown. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Becky said, her tone flat and unwelcoming. "But it seems there's a mix-up. Your seat is in economy class." Naomi blinked, confused. She had clearly booked a first-class seat. She glanced at the ticket again, hoping it was a mistake. But as Becky avoided eye contact and looked to the other staff members for support, Naomi's suspicions grew. Something didn't feel right. After a few moments, Becky reluctantly called over the supervisor, Paul Harris. Paul glanced at Naomi's ticket, barely acknowledging her presence, and muttered, "This is first class," as if her being there was an inconvenience. He quickly scanned the flight roster. "All the first-class seats are full," he said dismissively. "You'll have to take a seat in economy." Naomi's chest tightened, but she kept her composure, not wanting to make a scene. She nodded, accepting the economy seat, though the sting of being treated differently was undeniable. As she walked down the aisle, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place, her every step feeling scrutinized. But she pushed those feelings aside, determined not to let this moment define her. She sat quietly in her economy seat, adjusted her headphones, and tried to settle in. The first 2 hours of the flight were smooth, the hum of the engines familiar and comforting. Passengers around her were relaxed, unaware of the tension Naomi felt. She gazed out the window, but a nagging feeling lingered in her mind. Something about the situation didn't sit right with her. She couldn't explain it, but she knew it wasn't just about the seat assignment. Naomi remained alert, her instincts telling her to stay prepared for whatever was to come. Without warning, the plane suddenly lurched violently to the right, throwing several passengers into their armrests. A collective gasp filled the cabin, followed by a stunned silence. The aircraft jerked again, this time harder, and a low, unsettling noise came from the engines. The lights flickered briefly, and then the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Good afternoon, folks. We're experiencing some technical difficulties." Please remain calm as we assess the situation." His voice, though steady, betrayed a hint of concern. The plane began to shake erratically, and the cabin filled with a palpable tension. Passengers looked nervously at each other, some clutching armrests while others whispered in fear. Flight attendants rushed down the aisle, trying to reassure passengers, but their pale faces reflected their own rising panic. At the front of the cabin, Naomi could see the flight crews struggle. Captain Greg Mason gripped the controls tightly, his face drawn in concentration, while co-pilot Matt Brown looked over his shoulder, speaking in low, frantic tones. Naomi overheard fragments of their conversation. "We're losing control. We need to land, but I don't think we can." Their desperation was clear. Naomi's calm eyes observed their growing helplessness as the plane shuddered again, the situation growing more critical with every passing second. As Naomi observed the flight crew's growing panic, a cold realization struck her. The crew might not be able to handle this situation on their own. With calm determination, she stood up from her seat, her movements steady despite the chaos around her. Ignoring the whispered gasps from the passengers, she made her way to the front of the plane. She walked past the flight attendants, who looked at her with wide eyes, and approached the cockpit door. Without asking for permission, Naomi opened it, her voice firm and composed. "I'm Naomi Daniels. I'm a pilot. Let me help." Captain Greg Mason turned to her in disbelief, his eyes widening. "You're just a passenger," he muttered, shaking his head. But Naomi didn't flinch. "I'm not just a passenger," she insisted. "I've been flying for years. Let me take over for a moment." There was a tense silence as the crew exchanged uncertain looks. Then reluctantly, Captain Mason stepped back, his hands still gripping the controls. "Fine," he said, his voice tinged with skepticism. "But if anything goes wrong..." Naomi didn't give him a chance to finish. She slid into the captain's seat, her hands immediately steadying the controls. As her fingers flew over the instruments, she quickly assessed the situation: fuel levels, engine status, and trajectory. With a few precise adjustments, Naomi began to stabilize the aircraft. Her calm, expert movements immediately reassured the crew. As the plane leveled out, Naomi's confidence inspired a newfound trust from the flight crew, and the passengers, though still shaken, felt a sense of relief. Naomi had taken control, and with her years of experience, the flight was on its way back to safety. Naomi expertly guided the plane back toward Chicago, her every move calculated and precise. The shaking and tension that had plagued the flight were gradually replaced by a sense of calm as the aircraft stabilized under her control. As she approached the runway, she adjusted the plane's descent with expert finesse, and the landing was smooth and flawless, exactly what the passengers needed. The moment the wheels touched down, the cabin erupted in applause. Passengers cheered, not just for the successful landing, but for Naomi's calm and bravery in the face of crisis. At the front of the cabin, Captain Mason and the rest of the crew watched in awe, their earlier disbelief and reluctance melting away. They realized their mistake in underestimating Naomi, and a silent understanding passed between them. As Naomi disembarked the plane, she felt a deep sense of triumph. The weight of the earlier disrespect had lifted. She had proven herself, not just as a passenger, but as a skilled pilot and a true hero in the skies. This story isn't just about Naomi's impressive technical skills as a pilot. It's about overcoming prejudice and proving one's worth, even when others doubt you. Naomi faced subtle discrimination from the moment she boarded that plane, but she didn't let it define her. Instead, she rose to the challenge with calm determination, showing everyone, including the flight crew, exactly who she was. Her actions remind us that courage and expertise can often be overlooked, but when we face adversity, it's our ability to rise above that truly makes a difference. If you enjoyed Naomi's inspiring story, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more stories like this. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Sometimes life throws us unexpected challenges, but it's how we rise to meet them that defines us. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.